you allow people to trade freely and coordinate in that way, like flourishing can happen.
Weekend.
The weekend.
It's one of those.
I just don't think in such terms.
Oh.
Like I have a day off every week.
What is that, Sunday?
This week it was Saturday.
Oh.
It was good. The last few days were good. What happened? I stayed in Santa Cruz for work and went to a Afrobeats dance party.
Oh, cool.
That apparently happens every week in Santa Cruz in this open air marketplace square, and that was a fucking hoot. That was a hoot.
I would guess, yeah.
Yeah. I was told it was the best dance party, and then I was like, yeah, it's
it's about right.
Definitely the best dance party I've been to in a long time. It was
good.
It was really good. Really inspiring in my aspirations to make dancing in Chico, and to see that and go and be a part of it, and see that they're doing it just weekly basis, just throwing it down, and to see the community there is clearly like a regular occasion for this big group of people that all knew each other, and it popped off. Great vibes, a lot of love, a lot of positivity, and just a fucking hollering good time.
What do you think about closing this window? Because they're knocking now, and there are workers fixing that house up for sale.
Yeah. Good call. Yeah, so that was awesome.
Yeah, I bet. I've really been enjoying Afrobeats.
Me too.
I found a list of like the top 10, in the last decade
artists
or something. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, me too. Instagram's been feeding me a bunch, and you've been feeding me a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm finding like that's the best dance music that exists right now.
That's the best ever.
That's where it's going on.
Yeah.
Is in the Afrobeats world, and it's I love it.
Yeah.
It does exactly what I
just what it ought to do.
Want it to do.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, which is it feels like a world that's kind of opening up in different ways. And it's fun to see, like, to hear, like, how countries in Africa are like the fastest growing countries in the world right now.
Population?
Economically.
Okay.
They are booming. they're coming up.
Good.
and
It's about time.
Africa's getting richer, and it's cool to see with the Afrobeats world too. Like, it's an Africa moment here.
Yeah.
That's where the money is happening. That's where the fashion is happening.
Yeah.
That's where the music is happening.
Interesting. Yeah. This is another cycle here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. It does exactly the kind of rhythm and like nuance of rhythm.
Yes.
And high resolution rhythm.
Yes.
That
right.
I'm like always craving.
Subtle, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like really doing something good for me.
That's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the dance. I love seeing, and as I dance to it more and feel the resonance of myself, and like watching the dance and listening to the music, watching people dance and listening to the music is really cool. Because so much of it is about this like subtlety.
Mm-hmm.
And this like subtlety of movement and
right, little, it's fascinating.
And
it's a long way from the twist.
Yeah, the twist is very American.
Oh, thoroughly. Yeah.
And that's that. Yeah, and that contrast has been interesting. Like, it goes kind of with the culture. Like, American is more bombastic and rock star.
Right.
Bigger moves.
Mm-hmm. Has to be obvious.
Yeah, it's more obvious. Yeah. Yeah, whereas African music is, way more subtle. The movement's like, it's like how deep can they go in your body, and
right.
and a lot of the songs for like 2 minutes will just be this like very, very low key intricate driving beat that doesn't need to like do anything.
No.
but just be this intricate thing.
Just be, it doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's very interesting.
So was that was the first Afrobeats gathering you had been to? Yeah.
Yeah. Makes me wanna.
I bet that would turn Chico out.
Yeah, I'm seeing like, oh, maybe I should do that.
You should.
I should inject.
No
There's no one
question
else
about
doing it.
Yeah.
And I think they would. I think that's what people want. That's what I want.
Right.
I think that's the music.
Right.
This is the music of the dance music of the time.
Interesting.
And it lends itself, the experience of dancing, it lends itself to a kind of presence that's very interesting. It's this very like, in my own experience of dancing along with it, and seeing other people dance, there's a presence of mind that is striking, I guess, in contrast to like house music and like rave music, which is more, and a lot of bass music, which I find people use as a kind of drug to enter into a kind of hypnotic state of just trance drum, which is its own sort of technology, but the Afrobeats world is like the subtlety of it lends itself to like more expression in a way. It's a lot more expressive, the experience of dancing and seeing it. It's baseline more expressive and more about the expression of the person. And that's part of like the little movements. It's the articulation of all these little things. And
yeah,
it's exactly what it's my kind of shit. It's like my kind of shit. It's great.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's been a pleasant discovery for me.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Just to find something that makes me move, even if I'm just sitting there,
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
It's something that just gets in my bones like that.
Yeah, and just does it for you.
Right.
And then you can just get on it if you
Right.
want to.
Yeah, or sit there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that too. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Yeah, so I'm excited about that and discovering it and DJing it and making dance parties out of it and seeing how it affects my writing too.
Oh. Yeah, you never know.
Because that's just, it's always the case. Like what I get interested in musically seeps its way into what I write, and yeah, the rhythms. That's like, it feels like a fundamental discovery of sorry. Like that's one of the things I think I love most about music, is that high resolution rhythm and articulation of rhythm.
I once saw a talk, I guess, by Wynton Marsalis, who talked about music. I guess he I don't know if he teaches at the university level, maybe in New York, but he does some kind of lectures about music, and I can't quote anything, this was years ago, but he made a good case for the most basic and most fundamental music being rhythm, where something happens and then it stops. And then it happens again, and then it stops. And it can be notes. It can be just the percussion.
Yeah.
But that integration of the starting and stopping of percussion and notes and is the heartbeat. That's where you can take it anywhere from there, but that's really where it starts.
Yeah.
And I had never heard that explanation, before that, or theory, or whatever that is. But it hangs together.
Yeah. It's at the basis.
Right.
It's time.
Yes,
itself.
Time. Exactly.
It's time itself.
And how things, change over time and regularly or irregularly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds pretty close to language, too, for that matter. At least spoken.
What do you mean?
Well, in that it's a matter of time. Things happening and then stopping.
Oh, that's like
Sounds.
its own elemental part of language.
Right.
Is when you stop and
right, when you begin and where, how the shape of things in your mouth and what your lips and palate and tongue are doing and how they have to change all the time, in a timely fashion in order for you to be intelligible.
Yeah, and like some caveman just uttering a sound,
right?
An initial sound, how he times the thing
sure.
will change, whether it's like a ooh or a ooh. Totally different situation.
That was a hit. Yeah.
Totally different situation.
Yeah.
But same sound.
Right. Right. I want to go to Santa Cruz. I keep hearing, good things about it. And that's where William James is.
Oh.
Eventually.
Okay.
I'll get there.
Yeah. I've spent a tiny bit of time there. And grown to, like it more and more. There's a spirit there, no doubt.
That's what I hear.
There's a real spirit there, and a lot of people, seems like, a lot of culture of a sort, and and just the fact of that night dance party that happens was like a mark, like, okay, Santa Cruz,
right.
if you can do that.
Uh-huh.
So it's already gotten me like aimed at trying to, I'm gonna get as many clients as I can in the area.
There you go.
And just so I can go there.
That's good.
Have an excuse to go.
So that was Friday?
It was Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
That was a bunch of appointments, but I centered it around Santa Cruz and made my way back up.
Okay.
On the way home.
I mean the Afrobeats.
That was on Thursday.
That was Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the subject of time and rhythm, we could. I think of my prompt about waltz and versus a pendulum. Just go theme.
Yeah.
Thematically.
I'm interested in the pendulum part.
So the prompt was basically life is more a waltz than a pendulum.
Right.
And so what do I mean by that? Like up until recently, that's been just the basic assumption about life, is it's a pendulum of going back and forth, and that's what history does, is swings back and forth between extremes, and that's what political situations do.
Right.
And I've been really kind of getting off on the idea of threes and trinities, triangles, and I think triangles are way cooler than a line.
For sure.
And so I've been playing a lot with just imposing a triangle on a lot of things, kind of conceptually. And so a waltz is a triangle. And the idea basically came from a meditative experience that then has been continuing on, where I was doing my normal meditation where I focus upon my feeling of yes.
Okay.
And then I'll go space out, lose the feeling, and then I'll at some point come back to yes. Lose the feeling, and come back to yes. And I just started to, at some point, begin it with just feeling my body. And this is something that's been a part of it for a long time, but just feeling my body as it is in the moment. Kind of like vipassana, just feeling sensation and just noticing what's the most, very, very vipassana influenced. Where's the most intense feeling? What parts of my body are quieter, don't have much sensation, and then I'll move into focusing on the yes. And at some point, I was just noticing within that process, there's a third part that happens. It's not just yes, and then I go back to feeling my body and nothingness. There's a wandering component where it's I'll feel my body, just scan sensations in my body, then I'll move more directly into yes and just focus upon that and just kind of identify with that as completely as I can, and that kind of at some point will kind of dissolve, and we'll have a dissolving kind of moment of sorts where it just the boundaries loosen, and then I'll be in this place that usually I only know after, in hindsight, where I'm just wandering and there is no focus. And then it goes from there to then feeling where am I? What is my body feeling like now? And then to yes. And then I wander.
Okay.
And that was that's been really cool to notice, and just account for that is a natural stage in that process. And I think it's so it's made my meditations richer, because I just plan to wander, and I'm able to be a little more aware during it of just I'm wandering, la la la.
Right.
And,
so is the wandering intellectual? I mean, are we talking about wandering thoughts, abstract thoughts, or wandering in terms of your bodily attention?
both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same. In
Okay.
some way. And I think that little waltz of attention I've been playing with, that's kind of how my life goes too.
Oh.
It's not going back and forth between things. It's actually a process of knowing what I'm going for it, and then wandering around once you've gotten there. Because you're in a clearing, and you're just looking around, and you don't have a goal.
Right. You're there.
You're there.
So
you're
what exactly is
now
here?
you're just there wandering through the garden, and then at some point you begin to identify consciously where you are, and begin to identify where you're trying to go, and just cataloging what is this place, and then you get a sense of where you're trying to go, and then you are going, and then you wander again, and and I think there's a it's at least been useful to me. So there's been I feel like there's a useful truth to it.
In there, yeah.
To seeing life as more of a waltz triangle, as opposed to like, oh, I'm on and I've fallen off the horse, and I'm on the horse and I've fallen off the horse. So like, I'm doing good and I'm not.
Right.
I'm doing good. It's like, no. It's this waltz through life. That, and at the least, it feels like a more affirmative for me, a more affirmative attitude. It's like, no, you haven't fallen off. You're in the wandering phase. You got somewhere, and now you're wandering. That's where you're supposed to be. And then you go to,
Okay.
So, it's been, fun to consider, and and it feels just more, it's meeting my needs of trying to see life more affirmatively, and see the natural things we get into more affirmatively, like.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And I go back to meditation, where the really, really, really basic thing that often people encounter with meditation is like, try to focus and then you're not focusing. Monkey mind, and try to focus on monkey mind. And just that is always that's always been like just not sexy of an idea. It's not an attractive idea, and I think it turned a lot of people off to the idea of meditation, because it just,
no doubt,
it just makes it about like, you're weak.
Right.
And I think it's just not true. I think there is just a very real need to wander in life, and that's the main new idea, and that's kind of finding its place. Right. For me, I think it's essential.
The wandering. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's at least part, maybe most of what's wrong with public education. Everything is regimented and tested and based on the assumption that the standards are valid and are best for people as opposed to industry.
Yeah, but it's very clearly based on what a machine should do.
Right. Yeah, and what kind of cog they think they'll need in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, but if you're studying a human being and trying to do so with your own, studying yourself, from what I can see, you come up with a bit of a different answer.
Yes, you do.
As far as how to structure things. There is a dance to it, but it's not just on and off.
No. Do you know how to waltz? Have you waltzed?
No, I can very, very basically tango, which they're cousins in a way.
Yeah.
And and like I know with salsa too, there's a basic step in between. And it's kind of the same with tango. It's the same between centering step.
Oh, right, I see.
That makes the boop, 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 boop.
Did you ever see the salsa guy on, have I sent you any of that on YouTube?
Mm-mm.
I'll have to find it. There's a guy who goes apparently all over, or I can't say all over, but in many places in South America. Sets up his boom box in a busy area. He has a sign that says, "I think, do you want to dance?" What's the words to that effect? And he talks rapid fire Spanish. I mean, I hardly understand it anyway, and his is entirely gibberish. But he has this nonstop patter, and people dance with him. And now I've seen.
It's cool.
Yeah, I've seen video where people are dancing with each other. You know, where initially it was just he was just trying to get people to dance with him.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And spontaneous, you know, in the middle of downtown or wherever he is in Buenos Aires or, you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's real good.
I'd love to have the skills to be able to do that one day.
Yeah. And, well, yeah. I mean,
goals.
as far as I can tell, yeah, he can talk and he can dance.
Yeah.
He found a way to use that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. Can get on that. Yeah, I was gonna keep going on the waltz. Should I?
Yeah.
Okay. I've also been kind of relating it to a fun moment with a friend recently, where I was relating that wandering step, the third part, with kind of where we are in history.
Yeah.
And all the fucking weirdness and nihilism and postmodern shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was seeing it in context of like, oh no, at its essence, nihilism is like, there's an essence to it and there's an essential nature to it. And what it is just the wandering step from clear movement forward in a particular direction, and then we do have to wander and discover new things and novelty and let go. You gotta let go of preconceptions, that kind of thing. And that was cool, just to more affirmatively be able to see nihilism more affirmatively, like in context. Like, yeah, the wandering, when you're not sure, like, and to account for times of feeling lost too, which I have felt very lost, and in previous months it's been very much working on my own behalf, of like, that's totally natural and not necessarily bad.
Feeling lost?
And it's the third part of the dance, where you're like asking questions and then you're knowing where you're going and just being it and acting, and then you don't know.
Right.
And then you don't know, and then you ask new questions, and then you be and you know it, and then you don't know. And
yeah, over and over.
Over and over. Yeah, and that's just a natural thing in life, is the idea, the hypothesis. And ideally, you're building, that's a building, spiraling process, where what you know does accumulate. But you gotta not know. You gotta be able to not know. Be a little lost. Because you get to see what really holds up, I think, too. And in addition to just being open enough to discover new things.
Right. Yeah. And that it's hard for some of us to accept not knowing. You know, it can be frightening. Which I suppose leads to lots of bad decisions made hurriedly and in a panic.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking that the sky was actually falling.
Yeah, but sometimes, it's better that you don't make any decisions, like, when you don't know. It's like, oh God, I don't know, I need to do something. It's like, no, you don't.
That's why you shouldn't do anything.
You shouldn't do anything. You should just
take
observe.
a day off. Yeah.
Yeah, or take a day off. And you're just in the wandering phase, honey.
Right. It'll pass. Just pay attention. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you feel like going?
Well,
you had a couple that you sent as well that I don't see on this list.
No, that's another email. I don't even remember what they were. I'm interested in these agreements you postulate, hypothesize, or something underlying civilization. That there are.
Yeah.
They're fundamental in anybody's civilization, I guess, but Western civ.
Yeah.
At a minimum.
Will you read that?
Yeah.
It's a quote. Not my quote.
Civilization rests upon the agreement that there are things that we can and should have.
Yeah, so that was Jordan Peterson talking to, I think I sent you this conversation. A couple dudes, one of them, his name is Marion Tupy, who runs a outfit and website called humanprogress.org.
Right.
And he's basically been doing, he's like some high-level academic, well respected, doing a ton of work on showing the objective progress of humanity that is only continuing, and it's like exponential.
Okay.
In like a bunch of different domains, and he's written at least one book on that, and this conversation was with another guy who he co-authored a book with, and it's a really good conversation too. Really drives home how, like, things are better than they've ever been in the entirety of human history, in like huge ways that people have no idea about. They're just like existing on.
Right.
Yeah, I'm remembering, and then I'll get more directly to that, but I'm remembering something, they're talking about light and how that's being used by economists, some economists, I think it was one particular guy, as a marker of just seeing the change, the cost of light, the cost of lumens, and you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I'm trying to remember the exact numbers, but it was insane.
I don't doubt it.
It was insane.
Yeah.
It was like some hours for hours of work. Like the whole conversation, they were talking about time pricing. So using hours of work as the metric for getting this, which I thought was very cool. And for light, like, I'm terrible with my numbers here, but at some point it was in earlier times, it was hours to get an hour of light. Now it's like point like 6, like, what is it? It's like 0.6 seconds or something.
Okay.
For an hour of light.
Yeah. That's about right.
And and I'm gonna put the numbers up actually on the video, but that was just very fucking cool, and the whole conversation just goes on about that, how much things are improving. And so at one point, JP brought up that quote, and it just struck me. I'm not exactly sure even what I'll say about it, but it stood out to me, and especially in light of the last conversation we had. So civilization rests upon the agreement that there are things we can and should have. Yeah. So I just think of basic like coordination between people. Like you coordinate with someone because you see that there's something that could come of it. And that's the basis of civilization.
Right. Have you seen, or have we talked about, there's a talk in particular by Harari, Yuval Noah Harari.
You've brought him up?
Yeah. And this, where my slightly fuzzy recollection is that he talked his primary example or comparison was with chimpanzees, who are very close to us, closer than any other animal, I suppose, and posed the example of, taking the bus downtown.
You
did I mention
told me
that? Did I
this.
send that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I remembered it because it's not something I ever really thought about before. that our ability to coordinate with each other and do things based on some agreed upon goal, and to sacrifice in some way now in order to gain something later.
I hate that word, but okay.
What? Sacrifice?
Yes.
Okay.
I can talk about that if we want
Okay, yeah. And so that caught my attention.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
And
but presumably, well, so is the suggestion that the basis of any civilization has to deal with the same, at least the same category of agreements about what people what we ought to have?
I think the specifics differ, and the values,
yeah,
and that's where we get different civilizations. But I think there is something fundamental to the basic coordination in the aim of achieving something that we don't have yet.
Right.
And that being the thing that we could have and should have.
Right.
And you go through with it because you think we should have it.
Yeah.
And I do think, yeah, and this is new thoughts for me. I do think that seems like a solid working essential definition of civilization. And it just builds off of that in higher and higher complexity, but it's the basic thing is just coordination based on what could be. And ideally then people are free to do that, to coordinate as they choose,
or not,
and capitalism. Thus the argument for capitalism enters for me there, because it's basically the only system we've seen where that is the basis of the idea.
Right.
You are free to coordinate with whom you choose, or not.
Right.
And it's only based on voluntary coordination. And that's the most, if that's the definition, if the definition of civilization at an essential level is coordination in service of something not yet manifest, then capitalism is the most in line with that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, okay. It's fun to discover over time more and more why explicitly I agree with capitalism. And just in the question of like, what's up with it? It just increasingly, seems clearly the best idea we've had. Hands down. Hands down.
Yeah, it would be really hard to argue with that.
Well, people do though. That's why it's so.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to understand it more.
That's useful.
It's amongst my cohort, it's completely accepted that capitalism is the devil. Or people my age, I don't know, my cohort.
Right.
But it's constant that when something goes wrong, it's like, capitalism. Thanks, capitalism. Like it was once thanks Obama, and now it's like,
right.
Thanks, capitalism.
Right. Yeah, I've gone around about capitalism.
You've gone around with it.
Yeah, I mean, approving, disapproving, appreciating, and not so much. But I can't. I'm in agreement. I'm aligned with the fundamentals. And the more I pay attention, the longer I live, I guess, the more I see how problematic government is. And that top-down kind of stuff, especially secret, which is what we've got now.
But a lot of stuff that's secret, but not so secret, and so that's awkward.
I know. I mean,
cringy.
When I think about what I think of as problems with, say, just the system here in the United States, or in Chico, for that matter.
Okay.
I really can't think of something that bothers me that I don't think would be ameliorated or made better in some way by transparency, by everybody being able to find out anything that the government is doing or deciding or anything. And that's as far as I've got. I can't think of anything that would that's helpful somehow to keep from the population at large. And some of it, I suppose, would be risky. Maybe all of it, I guess, to somebody or other. But people just don't. Things happen, and we don't really know why. And it's illegal to tell us, stuff like that.
Do you have a specific example you're thinking of?
Well, I've given some attention to police work. And the way, say, in Chico, things are secret. And all the changes, that for instance, that Chico PD has gone through to keep secret the records around, specifically killings in the last 5 or 6 years, and backed presumably by the city council. And I don't see how that can possibly be justified in any way. It's there being public government department. Anything they do, we should know about.
So they're keeping these records secret, as in literally keeping people from finding out. There's actions being taken.
Well, keep their records of, say, an incident, or releasing the body cam footage and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And although that they want to keep say just talk about Tyler Rushing or Stephen Best, the two cases I've probably heard the most about or read the most about anyway.
Okay. Those have been
the only reason, yes, the only reason I assert that the only reason to keep those records secret is to cover their ass. Why else would you?
Mm-hmm. And they are keeping them secret?
Well, they have been until they just got dinged by a federal, district judge or something or other, who said, no, this is not right, and you got to show them all the things that that people have been asking for. Dave Waddell, in particular, who writes for Chico.
People have been trying to get
those records, right?
This footage, these records, and Chico PD has been making it difficult to do so.
Impossible.
Or impossible.
Right, just confusing to release them.
Okay.
And
then a judge
Waddell,
was like, you have to.
Right. Waddell sued, and it went through, because it's a year, years long process. But finally, this latest judge ruled in his favor. So now they've got to not only turn over the records, they've got to pay for all the lawyers involved, which was entirely unnecessary if they weren't afraid. Maybe, my contention is that they may even be ashamed. That's what I hope. That would be at least, it would at least involve some moral implications. So I'd like to see, I'd like to try transparency in everything. And it seems to me that's a step toward a functional kind of anarchism. I've seen suggestions, for instance, that body cams, as soon as they go on, that footage goes to the cloud. Straight up, nobody gets to tamper or anything. Mm-hmm. It's immediately public, not just saved somewhere, but it's immediately public. I think that'd be a good idea. I don't see why that would be bad.
That's
just one example.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
And knowing how the officials, this is a separate example, how the officials, doctors associated with FDA and CDC get to put their names on patents that they approve and make money. And even when I learned just that Fauci's been on the public teat since 1968, I think. He makes close to $500,000 a year. This is in addition to his whatever royalties and things he rakes in because of the research work he's done with CDC and other government agencies over that time.
But
that's just asking for for trouble. It's too much. It's too much authority.
Basically.
Right, and
there hasn't been any stakes for losing his job.
None. No, it doesn't matter. And I'm betting that all of the people involved in this Chico case
with
will
Waddell
do fine. With Waddell, just that. Nobody's going to lose their job. Although what they were doing was clearly at least unethical. It may have, I suppose, it was legal to some extent. But it seems to me if this federal judge has ruled in Dave Waddell's favor and against the city, there should be some kind of consequence. But I'd bet there won't be. You know, the most that'll happen, or that is happening, I guess, is that they'll finally have to release the records, and they still get to redact whatever they can dream up. And I'm against redaction too. I don't know what's that for. Anyway, that's my rant. So one of the things that I think civilization should include is transparency.
Agreement
for all the citizens. Yeah, that there won't be any. And that doesn't have anything to do with with privacy, individual privacy. This is just for the government.
Yeah.
And publicly traded corporations.
Yeah, whatever is put out onto the public marketplace.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like everything's headed that direction.
I sure hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable.
Really?
Yeah, the nerds are hard at work.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I think.
But they're also hard at work tracking us, and
some of the nerds
algorithming us, and
some of the nerds, yes, yeah, the Google nerds and the Facebook nerds. Right. But I'm talking about like the deep nerds working on blockchain technology. I think is inevitable, and creating the decentralized web, I think is
which we
inevitable.
Dearly need.
Yeah, I think I do. Of course, nothing's inevitable, but I think it's clearly where we're going.
Yeah.
So I guess I feel very optimistic about all of that. I think it's just a matter of time. And I think, I think from all signs, I think the transparency point, that's, like, there's more needed, but that's progressed crazily.
That's true.
It's only increasing.
And the main thing that concerns me about crypto and blockchains and all that is that it depends on such high technology, and if that so it seems to me it's vulnerable to some interruption, and I don't, and so that the system could be shut down. It's conceivable. And I think I mentioned, what's this guy's name? Andrew Tate?
Yeah.
You know anything about him?
No.
I didn't either until I heard his name mentioned somewhere, and somebody or other was talking about his being deplatformed and banned off pretty much everything. Or all the mainstream Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and all that. So I checked. I wanted to find out why. What did he do? And he is a wild man, and I can see why he would be scary to some people. Because he is a kind of extremist. But I don't like that all that can just be shut out. Somebody suggested that his assets had been frozen. It turned out not to be true, but that's the kind of thing that can happen. You could just be turned off. All you've got is a piece of plastic. What used to be a debit card is nothing.
Yeah, if it's controlled by the government, but all this sounds like And I still have very basic understanding of blockchain and all the work that's being done. But so much of the focus is being done so that no one has the key.
So nobody, yeah.
That's
and
the whole point.
That gives me hope.
Yeah, it gives me a nuts hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just building in basic agreements on proof and engagement seems to be kind of the case. Okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I had a thought about transparency and truth while I was peeing. And just taking it personally as I do. Take that personally. That's my strategy for a lot of things. And my relationship with transparency and lack thereof, and to the degree that I am transparent. Often when that word is brought up, it's kind of post-event, and it's a demand to fess up,
right,
to divulge. And it makes me think that part of what's tricky about the whole thing is like, I think there should be requirements for the government to be transparent. That's got to be built in. But like ultimately in the long-term project of humanity, that like it's got to be based on a love of truth. If it will be real and long-lasting, because the confessional finger pointing is not a good motivator for humans.
Right.
It doesn't lend itself to coordinating very nicely. And it doesn't lend itself to voluntary coordination. And so the thought was that it's got to be about, like, personally, as well as I think on a larger scale, it's got to ultimately be about a love of truth, because transparency, it's like to be truly honest is a very active endeavor. You have to like want to be honest and try to be truthful and like trying to get at the truth. If you're going to actually get at the truth,
right?
That's and transparency is has very confessional vibes to it. And I just don't think we're going to get at all the truth if that's our only means of getting at it. Is confessing. It's got to be, and just seeing that, really in my own life, like getting at the truth requires really trying to get at the truth as like a way of life.
It's never ending.
Because it's never ending. It's God being revealed, and it's got to be more like that for me. Even just practically speaking, because it seems like I'm just seeing it as a binary of like it's either going to be an act of love of trying to discover truth, or it will end up being confessional because reality forces you to
that's what you got
to fess up about something. So that was a thought on transparency. And I guess maybe see if I can try and move that forward a little bit, like what that would actually look like. To be more oriented around a love of truth than living a life of transparency, because that seems to be a kind of virtuous affirmation in such times, but it's not that attractive to me. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not exciting enough. And I think the excitement is part of the answer. It's like, for myself, it's like, well, just a life aimed at truth is more exciting. It's more adventurous. It's more thrilling. And it's more ecstatic. At least. And that's why you do it. So that's one reasoning out of.
So where did I was I've been thinking a little about Sheeple.
Okay.
And all the changes that people went through with COVID, masks and social distancing outside and all kind of stuff that
wear your mask in
wear
your car,
wear your mask in your car, in the bathroom, everywhere, and how that has it's been demonstrated that was just drivel. They just made that up, and the mask served no purpose whatsoever. All right, I take that back. They served a purpose, but they were not effective.
Yeah.
And
so and that was probably known very early on.
Very early on, sure. Right.
It's pretty clear.
Although, I saw a Fauci statement recently, where he's not saying we were wrong. That was just hooey. And,
you wouldn't say that.
No. It's just now the guidelines are different. We said this, this is what we suggest, and we think, will make everybody happy and keep everybody safe. And, and that it's not being clear that this is a complete reversal of what they said 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not explicit, and it's probably just going to go by most folks.
Yeah.
And so, which mitigates against changing the system, because more people are, because that many people are satisfied with, think it's doing okay, and we have to do what they say. They know best. They're looking out for us. That's what we pay them to do. That's why they're there, to take care of us.
That's been one of the more striking parts about this whole COVID experience, and people just jumping at the opportunity to follow all these guidelines. It's like, when did the government suddenly become like a respected source of
yeah,
like trust? Like, when did that happen? Like, the very people who have been, a lot of people who've claimed to take issue with the government's lack of transparency and trust are like the first to jump in line.
Yeah.
And it's like wild to behold, and people around me, and
yeah. It's most interesting.
yeah, like, when did what happened?
Yeah.
But I think it's, I mean, it's a lot of it, I think, is fear, just mortal fear.
I suppose
Is a powerful force.
That's pretty basic, yeah.
And when an authority comes to stave off that danger, and you're afraid, and don't feel like an authority on your own health, then it makes sense why that would occur. But
yeah, I don't know.
was there more you wanted to say on Sheeple, or on the idea of Sheeple? What makes you bring that up?
Well, because in my head, it's related to what we've been talking about in regard to culture.
Okay.
And that freedom to join in or not didn't exist with COVID. You couldn't just decide. You know, even though the benefits of the mask, my understanding at least, the benefits were mostly to accrue to the person who was wearing the mask, to keep out other people's germs. I guess, you know, and so if you had some undiagnosed something going on, it would also prevent the mask wearer from passing on those, those airborne, viruses and bacteria and things. But mostly it was for the wearer. So it's, I mean, what my brain came up with, well, if you don't want to get COVID and you think this mask is is a sound way to prevent it, then wear a mask. And it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, because you are protected. So, you know, so everybody can decide whether to wear a mask or not, and where and under what circumstances, but that's really all that's necessary. Nobody has to mandate anything. This is what we think is going on. This is how we think it's being transmitted. And this is how we think you can protect yourself.
Yeah.
Over and out.
Yeah. That would be a more solid, insane, governmental.
Yeah.
Action and communication.
Right, something that gives us some good information, and then we decide what to do with it.
Yeah.
I thought that's how things were supposed to go. But no, not this time. It's too dangerous, and you guys are just too dim to do the right thing, so we're gonna make some new rules.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that condescension present. Yeah, if you're too dim, and banking on the kind of guilt of being your brother's keeper.
Right. That was masterly.
Because that's what it turned into, from not just protecting yourself. It's like, okay, it doesn't really protect you, but it's not about you. It's about everyone else and the old person. Like, you might kill them.
Right, if you don't wear a mask.
If you don't wear a mask, you could kill them. And you don't want that. So.
Yeah.
And then you should get vaccinated, so that you don't kill them. And it's like, that doesn't work. But we don't talk about that.
Right. It doesn't prevent anything, but you should get it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
'Cause then it'll be easier on you. Yeah, I know. And I still see people with masks at the farmer's market, and
yeah, there's been a resurgence with the latest strain of people wearing masks, and
so is this monkeypox? I thought that was actually different.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I know.
But I just know there's been another wave, and yeah, I'm trying to think. Do I have any? Can I say something like constructive about this whole thing, or interesting? It's so easy to just like feel, just like shake my head and like my eyelids get heavy, and I just like
yeah.
Have you ever been a sheeple? I definitely have.
Yeah, I'm sure I have.
Yeah. Because I definitely have been a sheeple.
Yeah. Sometimes I think you have to have been a sheeple in order to recognize them,
Yeah, that's part of getting woke.
No.
It's part of waking up.
Waking up, okay.
Yeah, it's part of waking up, and that's the zeitgeist explosion of those movies, and and scales falling from your eyes, and I suppose maybe that's this is a more pessimistic view, and I don't know how far it goes, but like, each stage of life, as you progress into a new stage of life, you kind of look at yourself, past self, like a sheeple, or I feel like that. Like, you see the ways in which you were not responsible for your own experience. You see the ways in which you had relied on external factors. And the new stage is you becoming aware of that and hopefully taking responsibility for those things and things getting better. And maybe that's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah, it could be.
But,
especially in large modern groups, where we have access, or not just access, are bombarded with lots of information and ideas about things we really have no experience of. And but for one reason or another have to make some kind of decision, even if it's to click off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
even if it's to drop out, kind of.
Right. Turn it off or something.
Yeah, I've definitely been a sheeple in my life. I've been a human. I've been amongst the sheeple. Yeah, it comes down to authority. It comes down to how much you embrace and, for me, validate your own personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
And to bring it back to dancing, that's one of the things dancing has done for me, is and continues to do so. And part of why I want to make dance parties is it puts you in touch with your immediacy of your being, and the greater in touch you are with your own immediate self and experience, the less likely you're going to be a sheeple. Because you'll notice how that feels to do so.
Right.
And it turns out that's not the most life-affirming thing to do.
No. And it seems not to always be easy to notice it, you know. You can get lost in the...
Yeah.
that ongoing chorus.
Yeah, and then I go back to that idea of it being just a natural process, because it's kind of like that with being a teenager. Like,
yeah,
you're a sheeple of your parents, and then you're not.
Right. Right.
And in some sense, it's not bad. It's just where you were.
No, it's just that's.
And once you become aware of it, then you got to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so to kind of bring it back a bit more too, I mean, this can help tie things up. As far as that, civilization rests upon the agreement that there are things that we can and should have. Part of what is moving me forward from a time of being a sheeple in a way, and coming out of a level of sheepality into greater like ramhood or something,
right.
manhood, is kind of a basic recognizing and allowing and affirming of what I could have and what I think I should have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this basic self-centered affirmation of what I could and should have, ought to have, is what is moving me beyond being a sheeple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no coincidence that the sheeple about whom we're speaking in the COVID world also speak selflessness.
Oh, sure.
And because they go completely together.
Yeah.
Because if you're affirming your basic creaturehood and needs and wants, that immediately puts you in the driver's seat, more in the driver's seat.
Just probably briefly.
Yeah, is there something you want to touch on?
Well, this part about the norm for most of evolution has been to go very, very slowly, and this what we perceived as fast change is relatively new. So I have a couple of questions, or I don't know, a couple of things occur to me. But to what extent can we track social evolution? Physical evolution is fairly straightforward. I mean, there are God knows lots of gaps, but there's a lot of evidence that support the story we have about the evolution of life, biology. Social evolution is different. We have pretty good records for recent history, but for most of our history, we don't have anything. And so sometimes I wonder, what might prehistoric, and by that I just mean before writing, and before anything that we at least consider, reliable oral lore handed down. What might that have been like? I mean, have you seen what's the name of that movie? It's about boys stranded they're shipwrecked on an island and then form their own society.
Lord of the Flies?
Yes. I've heard that film, the plot, the story discussed in a couple of different ways, one of which is mostly that it was just made up. It was a story, just like any other novel. And I've seen it talked about as a depiction of a perfectly natural reversion to primitivism of some kind. And I don't know what to think about that. I think that, a friend of mine is writing a book about kind of the evils of modern civilization and the way it removes us, and this is also involved with technology, the way it has removed us from nature and emphasized competition among people, between people. And he thinks that that's, kind of an accident of evolution maybe, and that the key is to get rid of all that and to get closer to nature somehow, and everything will be hunky-dory.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's an interesting idea. It's not one that hangs together for me. But I do wonder are there instances, examples of kind of more cooperation than we experience, say, in this country, somewhere else, tribal, presumably? Because pretty much everybody, all the countries and nations we hear about on the media are mostly Western Civ. They may have some other backgrounds, or like Saudi Arabia, which is most peculiar, but
hybrid thing.
And very much a hybrid, yeah.
The whole world is becoming a hybrid thing.
Pretty much, yeah. And overall, that's probably good.
Yeah.
I would think, more influences and more voices. But
and I specifically mean the more the world is becoming free market and capitalist.
Oh, yeah.
Seems to be what is improving the situation.
Right, I know.
Seems to be the reason.
Yeah. But how would we do it if everything, fell apart. How do people react? And clearly, I mean, it would depend on what culture they grew up in. But how did they react in a disaster? How do people? Does it become more dog eat dog? Is there? There's clearly some cooperation and compassion and mutual help and stuff that seems to arise automatically when people are in dire circumstances.
But you're trying to probe into like what's going on with human nature.
Right.
What are we starting out with? What's at the basis of our humanity? Yeah, and I think of Jordan Peterson talks a lot about a guy named Frans de Waal who's done a lot of study of chimpanzees and I think various animals, and he's apparently shown over and over and just observed over his career that like generally people think of chimpanzees as like basically classic power dominating patriarchy.
Right.
But that's not even the case. The super aggressive males that dominate their way to the top are very short term and will often get taken down by a few other guys. And it's the guys who take care of the women and reciprocate with the others that are the actual long-lasting.
Okay.
And he's like, this is the ethic at the basis of
and that
humanity.
other stuff is...
It's not about power. And the whole dominating thing, the idea is that, that's a very short-term strategy.
Mm-hmm.
We have the propensity for it, but it's not what civilization is based on. We wouldn't have gotten here if it was.
If that's
the argument. Yeah, we wouldn't have gotten, things wouldn't be working if that was the case. Which is, definitely a different view than what a lot of people spout about patriarchy.
That's good.
We actually wouldn't be here if it was a dominator, if it was completely. Right. We have that clearly.
Yeah, it's here, but
but if that was the center
story
of it, we wouldn't be able to even talk about it. It'd be just, I don't know, chaotic mess or something.
Right. Yeah. These are interesting times. And thank God for Afrobeats. That's all I gotta say. That's where salvation is.
Yeah, I mean, Africa is... Did you listen to that conversation with Magat Wade that I sent you?
I think so. Is that a woman?
Mm-hmm. Senegalese.
Yes.
Woman.
Yeah.
Businesswoman.
Right.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
It's fucking dope. Fucking dope. And it's a powerful black lady just going across the world being like, capitalism is the reason Africa is coming out of poverty. Like, it's making the entirety of the ability to start businesses, start operations, the free market, was allowing Africa to fucking boom and flower and like people in the West don't understand that because we've been living under it.
Mm-hmm.
We're just swimming in the water. But someone
Right.
who came from like, walking barefoot every day is like, this is like amazing.
That's pretty good.
This is amazing. Yeah. If you let people do it, it's just the idea of a free market. If you allow people to trade freely and coordinate in that way, like flourishing can happen. And
Yes.
And she had brought up something interesting, like apparently, and I don't know. She brought up a tale of a researcher, historian that she really admired, and him talking about how pre-colonial Africa, Africa was basically free market. Like that was the means of, it was free trade.
Right.
And it's like and it was an interesting, just different slant on the thing. Like, no, this is like old, this is ancient. This idea of free trade, this isn't like some white dude.
No.
This isn't some, which is usually the case, and I think usually the thing people can hand wave.
Right.
Like some white guy came up with this. Like, no, nature
it's older than
came
that.
up with this.
Right. Right.
Symbiotic relationships, exchange, and that was very interesting to encounter that idea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thank God for Afrobeats.